victory dance. Not until the fat lady sings.
Oh, yes, okay.
This is important.
Fat lady. I gotcha.
Open launch tunnel.
Shaky, huh? Who's gonna do this the whole way?
Just make sure your seat backs and tray tables are in their upright and locked position.
Yeah. Is it?
Rock and roll. Oops.
Oops. What does that mean? What do you mean?
I got it. Some jerk didn't put.
I know what I mean when I say oops. What do you mean saying oops there?
Well, you say we try that one again, huh?
Yes, without the oops. Yes,
That way.
Hello, it's Joseph again with zchg.org, bringing you an update, a much needed update. So sorry for there being a lapse in my bringing you an update. Let's talk about it.
Gotcha. So let's talk about, Joseph, a little bit about the more technical side of things regarding Charge token. You guys kind of pivoted away from going the Hyperledger route as far as blockchain. You're using Ethereum, correct?
Well, Ethereum is what we started off as. Okay. We were able to build a fully functioning platform for version 1 on the Ethereum network.
Okay.
The problems we ran into early on don't seem to be as prolific now that they're getting more miners online, that sort of thing, with the speed and the transaction cost. However, we also recognize the potential for growth and control over our own crypto by getting our own standalone everything going on, decentralized and everything. And so Hyperledger is an interesting one, proof of authority type of thing. I'm not opposed to it per se. It was something we had considered early on. Mm-hmm. It's just something probably more custom that we're going to be needing. And also just kind of in general, with my background, seeing the way that these 51% attacks are protected against the traditional proof of work. Right. We're basically assuming that there's one element of trust there that what's supposed to be completely trust-free, and that is trusting that those miners are not collaborating. The same players who are building thousands upon thousands of miners, they're the ones who are also most likely to collaborate. And so you need something to be truly trustless. You need something to combat even against that in the short term and in the long term. So I envision kind of a two-tiered approach to that for our version 2 platform, probably sometime in 2019.
Okay.
This will be, number one, it'll be a cryptographic platform. And what I mean to say is if an alien showed up right now, he'd probably have an advanced coin, digital coin that he could hand to us, and he'd say, this is legal tender when you get back on the public ledger.
Right.
Okay? And so it follows that we should develop something that is 100% secure or more secure or equal to secure as a public ledger type of thing, such that it's good to go when you get back on the public ledger. So that's tier 1. Tier 2, you want to have equal to or greater trust in the public ledger. And so you still need a public ledger, but tier 2, version 2 for us, if we were to create something like that, would have to require that we tap into that public ledger, the idea of the public ledger being still more secure than the cryptographic platform.
Gotcha.
So one idea that we're kind of poking at right now is multiple blockchains, just kind of piggybacking off of multiple blockchains for advanced verification. Or proof of authority still is kind of a in the wheelhouse of the concepts. It's just kind of, it really is a difficult problem to solve and say that you solved it without worrying about that one element of trust still being on the table. making that completely trustless. I think it's in our wheelhouse, but I do think it's a matter of time. It's not going to be something that just incubates overnight.
Excellent, excellent. Yeah, that makes sense, man. And I think that is definitely the right route to go. As far as technically speaking as well, what type of hardware? So is the hardware that you guys are using, is this proprietary? Is it out of the box? How do you guys build these out, and how do you implement it into the network?
The do-it-yourself early on stuff that we've already got available, that's just off-the-shelf parts. You could pick it up at probably Home Depot or Amazon.com, and hire an electrician to check off on the final job, and you're good to go.
So do you guys sell those online as well?
On the WeCharge.com, yeah.
And so that will evolve into more of a plug and play type of all-in-one part. Get you a lift for that, so that's kind of why we're trying to get the crowdfunding type of thing for that. But yeah, that's the next step, is to make it so simple that anyone could do it.
So what's really from that? What's in it for the EV driver? Is it that they'll have a wide network of charge stations at their disposal? Is that kind of what the...
Yeah, actually, the beauty we have, the application, the Charge application is the best thing we have. It provides electric vehicle drivers the direction through the Google Map, and it also provides them the information and the areas they are in, so they can just connect to it and
So that was in 2018, where we revealed that Bitcoin is not truly centralized. And there's why. The 51% attack is inherent to the network all the way back in 2018 on Crypto Blood. I indicated this. This means there cannot really be a 51% attack because it's already centralized when one conglomerate owns more than 51% of the miners, as has long since been the case with pseudo-decentralized coins like Bitcoin, Ethereum, etc. Now derivatives in disguise called ETFs muddy the waters even more. Remember the 2008 housing market crash? Boy vey. Now, that was the problem. Here is and has been the solution long since. Charg, or CHG, solved this problem at least 6 years ago. The world's first truly distributed Web 4.0 is here. By giving the mainnet source code to everyone to view using wrapped interoperability per our GitHub, Web 4.0 is the evolution of Web 3.0, which we also developed, with a twist. Now everyone literally owns a piece of the pie. Now everyone can be their own mainnet. And let me talk to you briefly, I don't want to dwell on this, but let me talk to you briefly about the reasons for, even though we had it developed long since, as per what I had projected in that long ago YouTube video in 2018. We dealt with a lot of sabotage over the years. In particular, our lead developer sandbagged us for many years. He was paid in full 1 million CHG coin. And per the messages, I've made a good faith effort to get him to honor the 1 million CHG that he was paid in full. And all we really want from him at this point is an instruction manual. If you want to get a hold of him on Telegram, CHGC_online, and this is his public presence, which he had previously made available to all of you to utilize. So please do utilize that resource and get in touch with him and ask him, why don't we have an instruction manual? That's sort of what I was hinting at with the beginning, that Independence Day movie flick that I showed you. Great movie, by the way. And touched on a little bit with my with the video with Crypto Blood, talking about if you had an alien currency and you didn't have the manual for it, could you still utilize the currency? And the answer is, of course you can. But isn't it a lot easier if you have your Rosetta Stone? Isn't it a lot easier if you have your instruction manual? And so that's why I'm harping at Oleg, because he is paid in full 1 million CHG coins which he doesn't seem to want to return, even though you'll see at the beginning of the messages I showed you, he had indicated he was going to. Or what I would prefer, you can keep the 1 million CHG and just get us an instruction manual. How hard is it to get an instruction manual? How important is it to our investors that we have an instruction manual, Oleg Ferens? And so, yeah, it sort of makes you wonder, what's the reason for all the sandbagging, Oleg? What's the reason for that? All right, moving right along. Web 4.0 really is here. It really is accessible to everyone. You can see our github.com/z/org. You can also access all of the resources. We've made it completely available to you on our GitHub. It's been available a long time now, but 2.1 was just released, which is even more powerful. Every single item of those assets are available to you. And we also have the Web 4.0 primitives, which I'm going to go over the concepts with you here in a bit. We do have quite a bit of primitives available to you also, which delve into the world of large numbers, imaginary numbers, utilizing just basic or complex math, I should say, imaginary number math, which is a real thing. If anybody's in the math world at all, it's not very high up actually in math. You have to go to discover imaginary numbers, Euler's, that sort of thing. Tying also into the tamper evidence, which is the offline native arm of the Charg platform. Let's show you this briefly, and this will kind of tie into what I'm going to say about Web 4.0.
So you see that Q, or maybe it was a D or a B. You see how it's off kilter? Well, I'm going to introduce a concept that I'll call analog TypeScript. Now, a computer will be able to detect exactly what precise angle that one letter is off by or has moved by. Thereby, you could fit up to 360, for example, up to 360 words using one character being revolved about its own axis around a 360 degree, for example, plane. So, now, when we introduce that one character and we spin it, the computer can interpret that word, that one character rotated slightly as a word, as a sentence, as a paragraph, as a page, thereby increasing compression exponentially. This messed me up. Anyways, I was going to show you that each Docker container can be assigned an SHA 256, which is sort of like what Ethereum miner will go for. The SHA 256 container itself is one instance containing a myriad number of those bots, which if we get our graphics card going a little better, we could say something like, 5,000 or 5,000 bots, right? And so each individual bot has its individual context file, and they also share those context files across the entire bot universe, be it the one container, the many containers, or the mining network of containers. And so the idea being we repurpose that proof of work useless hashing with something purposeful. It being a AI blockchain-based, blockchain siloed AI, utilizing the inherent SHA 256 hashing that containerization provides in the first place. And the idea being also that you can swarm those bots and basically scale up your, oh, that's why I couldn't break it. Cool, I'll be able to actually show you this. I had it on pause, so it doesn't let you break when it's on pause. We'll go up to system and not install current. There we go. Yes. So you can see we had that SHA 256 container, and thereby we're able to assign each bot its own hash
We're able to assign swarms of hashes in that way, and each bot is able to cooperate in that way toward the end goal of getting that machine learning to run efficiently. And so enter the network, which we are going to port to here shortly. The network will be able to silo the data, the high quality data, and it will also, of the bots, and it will also be able to facilitate the creation of a swarm of more bots. And those bots will be produced in distributed fashion thanks to anybody who wants to run their own node. And this creates an inherent just native or distributed AI mining platform. And so you can see one of the arms that we are developing towards, although we are still going to have the offline native arm, which is going to be more of a like if you want to be able to write a check offline, or if you wanted to remain completely anonymous, that particular network will have the interfungible, interoperable tie-in. We may or may not keep the original proof of authority network, and we're going to be able to have a much more powerful and purposeful proof of work network, which can exist beside the proof of authority network and the other networks, Ethereum, Fusion, and all those other networks. Although it doesn't require those things. That's the nice thing about interoperable or interfungible. Although it does make sense to continue that, that Web3 component that we pioneered, that interoperability permits for essentially finding the most efficient way to solve whatever problem you're trying to solve. In this case, we're just trying to create a really smart AI bot that gives AI tech to everyone. Everyone owns it. You can contribute your own processing power. The idea being, anyway, that you can contribute your own processing power and or borrow the processing power of others. And so there's going to be a give and take, and you sort of like SETI at home. I don't know if anybody remembers that, but back in the day, I don't know if it's even still running. It probably is. You could donate your spare computing resources to the AI to make it more powerful. You can tokenize that. And so I see big potential for zchg.org's own coin, which is called CHG Coin, to re-enter into the limelight a little bit with the next generation of network, which is going to be more of this proof of AI work concept as the one network, and then we've got the other network, the offline native, and we could even have this third network as the proof of authority, and I would say the fourth network being all the other networks that you can tie into in order to further increase the efficiency, the processing power of your network. At the end of the day, it's an economics problem, and so why not map to the most affordable network, which just might be zchg.org. You might want to check out my other video where I talk about that. My last video, actually. Anyway, pretty excited to share that with you. I think it's going to be really cool. I think you might begin to see how we are following the roadmap toward the peer-to-peer internet, the AI on the blockchain, which we started researching back in 2016 when I had a meetup group there in Loveland, Colorado, and we started developing then when we had a little tiny think tank of people native to the Loveland, Fort Collins area who were just coming to hang out and talk about AI that relates to the blockchain. Now, as you can see, it's evolving toward this functionality. In any case, I'm going to break that. Show sites and get you on.
I do apologize for the rendering issue we had with that. I was piping the webcam through my older phone, but nonetheless, I was in fact approached in 2016 by a number of figures, one of them being a gal named Heather, who was a lobbyist in Cheyenne, Wyoming. And they were very interested in my work early on, revolving around AI and the blockchain. And the reason why distributed AI is so powerful and has had so much potential from big players even back then, they took notice is many. When you have, first of all, you can increase significantly the overall power of the AI when you use that approach. You can also distribute that power across, as I demonstrated, multiple containerized assets. And so it actually has always been on our roadmap, although I kind of have shared with you before, I believe the Walmart effect, where you've got file storage, which is a compression problem and a hardware problem together, and you've got a more advanced encryption, and you've got this universe of different networks that each have their own strengths and weaknesses. And it's at the end of the day, it's an economics problem, right? Because you might want to utilize or tap into one network or large language model, which is sort of what I'm alluding towards, a containerized large language model, or a stable diffusion model. Each of those has its strengths and weaknesses. And what ties it all together is a technology which we actually developed in-house for Web 3.0, which is wrapped interoperability, mapped interoperability. And you get that left hemisphere, that large language model, and you get that right hemisphere, that stable diffusion. We didn't pioneer either of those, but what we did pioneer is the mapping or wrapping of the two, which is the bridge on your brain or on the brain of the LLM and on the stable diffusion. Wrapping and mapping those two together, wrapping and mapping different large language models, wrapping and mapping different stable diffusion models, wrapping and mapping the two together. And that's the real strength of the CHG 2.1, which is in fact already at your disposal over on our GitHub. So now, Web 4.0. Let's learn a little bit about that. What we can do with it.
Peer-to-peer internet.
What we can do with it, that peer-to-peer internet, in addition to the AI, which of course is many others are developing, so we don't have to. There are hardware and real-world people's lives and being improved by peer-to-peer internet and distributed power, which has been some of the underlying goals of the Charge project all along, which we've actually stuck to the roadmap, although things have gotten we've bitten off more than we can chew a lot of the times. A lot of the times it's available off that shelf, that Walmart effect, where everyone is really developing all of these things towards one integrated, interoperable, interfungible network in order to combine all those assets into the most efficient possible usage of those assets across a myriad of languages and functionalities. So let's talk about it.
Which is the way the internet should have begun. Okay, DARPA did a lot of research on peer-to-peer internet. They dropped it because it was not reliable. Bullshit. They dropped it because it would have completely liberated everyone from the start. That's why DARPA discontinued their research. The nice thing is, though, in these modern times, December 2022, we can rebuild. It's already off the shelf. It's just a matter of putting the pieces together, okay? So right now, CHG 2.0, that's the framework, the basic foundation, okay, for Web 4.0, which is distributed internet. Right now, with CHG 2.0, the reason it's the foundation for Web 4.0 is it's the foundation, okay, for ad hoc internet. The reason ad hoc isn't, you can do ad hoc with Windows 95, okay? You can do ad hoc with really old technology. The thing about ad hoc is, or peer-to-peer, if there's no encryption technology, anything you broadcast and anything you receive can be broadcast or received by anyone else, okay? So let's say there's another node here. There's another node here. And let's say that this node way over here is hooked up to the backbone in some way. Okay, send and receive. Somewhere, someplace, or combination of places, you need 1 gigabit per second. I don't know if it's gigabit or gigabyte. I know that somebody's going to give me a hard time about that. Who cares how you call it? But when you've got either one or multiple connection points, the hard thing to accomplish is upload speed. Actually, download speed's pretty easy. When you got one or multiple connection points that have the upload speed of 1 gigabyte, then you're gonna have success with this. Let's say we're in a city, okay? Let's say we're in a city with this one and this one, and let's say this one is out in the country, right? This one out in the country is going to have a lot more problems connecting to the internet than this one that's centralized in the city, because there's a million ways to connect here to get to your fiber or your backbone. There might only be one or two. There might be one out here, right? Okay. So your hurdles to overcome. Charge 2.0 overcame the hurdle of encryption, because before you could send or receive ad hoc, no problem on Windows 95, but everybody had access to your data. Now the big thing that Charge 2.0 unlocked, in addition to interoperability, interfungibility, was the ability for that data to be fully, and you'll have to forgive my handwriting when I go fast. I don't have handwriting when I go fast. That's a padlock, okay? Charge 2.0 unlocked security ad hoc, which didn't really exist before, at least not in the public realm. Whereby, even though I'm sending this data across multiple nodes, it's now fully encrypted, okay? So, encryption. Let me set this down for a second so it'll be at least a little legible. Encryption is what unlocks everything else. But development, as far as development, there are other projects further along. We're just getting started with the peer-to-peer internet aspect. So we'll probably start off forgetting that we have this tech, that we already have the peer-to-peer encryption, and then we'll bring that back into the fold at the very end. Now there's a lot of ham radio has been out there a long time. That sort of precedes everything. And ham radio is chirp technology. There's this thing called chirp stack. And chirp technology allows for you to have internet over ham. So if you've got your antenna broadcasting 100 watts, you can touch England from the United States, no problem. And if you can touch England from the United States, then you can touch anywhere. Now another thing we're going to have to introduce is tertiary logic. Because this doesn't work with digital. It's a bandwidth problem. But tertiary logic, what you introduce with tertiary is, in addition to in addition to 0 and 1, you introduce -1. And when you introduce -1, you introduce analog. Okay, analog. So when you have an analog signal as distinct from a digital signal, that's how you solve the bandwidth problem. Because there are, without licensing I might add, because there are technologies where you can reach pretty dang far, mid-range I would say 1 to 10 kilometers or miles, it doesn't matter how you would call it, 1 to 10 kilometers, but your bandwidth is limited without licensing. And the whole idea is, well, I think licensing isn't really a problem because you can have an agent, and I might even add that to the list, agent who is representing on behalf of your broadcast, the FCC in the United States, the requirements for licensing. So if you use the technology, it's sort of a technology of an agent who has the keys, you might be able to circumvent even licensing requirements, or you just go into bands that don't have licensing requirements. So the Internet of Things right now, I'm looking at Mashtastic, I'm looking at LoRa, a couple other technologies, LGEM maybe. Technologies, I'm looking to go medium to long range on the internet without licensing requirements, or maybe even using licensing vis-a-vis an agent to achieve the broadcasting potential of that's required to go 10 or more kilometers. Okay, so let's set some parameters for what we want to accomplish over at CA. Overcoming the licensing. In any case, I hope you understand where I'm going with this. I think clutch is another thing is hi, go away please for 1 second. I'm on a phone call. Oh, see, you can see I get very limited time, you guys, with my kids to work on this anymore. So that's why the budget problem, I'm trying to show you guys something. I can make things happen with the budget, but you know, something's got to give between kids and no budget for this. Right now, it's time with my kids is what gives. But hi, please, Alicia, please round them up. Ground to ground is what makes overcoming the licensing requirements very feasible, because then we can just circumnavigate all of this, which normally requires a nerd and a license. We just take it underground. So that's what we're focusing on here. In any case, I hope you understand where I'm going with this. The original
Another advantage of ground-to-ground, which I touch on our forums, zchg.org, is the growing concern about the EMF radiation from 5G, which is legitimate. Ask an engineer who knows what they're talking about and who hasn't been trained from the textbook to regurgitate, but who actually looked into it. The EMF radiation is a very real problem, but of course, if it's in the ground, it's not. And the ground, as Nikola Tesla would have attested, is the perfect conductor. And so I think if you were to listen to the ground, you would find that the military already utilizes this technology, ultra low frequency, look it up. But yes, ground to ground also does tie in, and we can also tap into ground to ground communication with an old school technology called the inverter with modulation. This is a Genetry solar, which I took apart, but it can be modified. Had to make sure my mic was on. I did a video before where my mic wasn't on for 45 minutes. ground-to-ground communication can be achieved, and also I might add peer-to-peer power, which is a century-old technology, Nikola Tesla. It can be achieved with inverters and inverter modulation, touching one another through just basic grounding poles and a few other modifications to the inverter, such as that modulation I talked about, which again the primitives for are available already on our website. There it is. So,
A master broadcast coming in. Similar to a satellite concept, except distributed or free. Free internet, really cheap internet. You got that master broadcast coming in. Everybody's signal, or a large portion of people's signal, could all come in on the same channel. But each person's encrypted, fully encrypted and safe portion of that data could be reserved to a portion of that signal. And when that occurs, thereby, you only have to send a little teeny tiny snippet of data in order to receive your 1080p picture of what that would be. So I send out my little snippet of data, XYZTAQR, like a maybe 16-bit snippet of data, and that would be a fully encoded, fully encrypted message that's sent out that says, this is what I want to see in the next frame. And because of low ping times, you send out your signal across those network of nodes, and you receive back on the master signal the tarball, which has as before, that double spiral of fully compressed information encoded with your private information on there, just like the blockchain, very secure, as well as everybody else's, as well as maybe some public broadcasts like this. For example, it doesn't have to be Leave It to Beaver, but I think it's funny that we should mention that, because that's sort of where this came from, is back in time, and now it's coming back. So a tiny little bit of information needs to be sent out, and you can receive back the public-private blockchain, whatever you had asked for, whatever you had called up, in addition to what others are calling up, which are their own in private, in addition to some general public information. Maybe there's 3,000 movies on there, or however many movies and songs and everything that everyone can access. Anyway, that's where it's going. As it turns out, you really don't need very much throughput for this to occur. Just a tiny little snippet of data. Excuse me, what? Just a tiny little snippet of data. You're looking at me all concerned, so I thought maybe the battery's running out or something. Tiny little snippet of data is being sent out, and a large amount of data is being sent back. And it can actually be quite a bit for you as well, privately. But the point is, the public data is quite large, and can be quite large, because you can license out one band for this, and each individual's private data can be apportioned, fully encrypted. I keep mentioning that because people would be concerned about the privacy of it. It would be private, vis-a-vis, by way of analogy only, the little squares of each individual person. Have a good one. zchg.org. We charge without. It'll load them all one at a time. So if you scroll down really fast, Facebook is the worst at this. If you scroll down really fast, it'll load, and then it'll one at a time catch up. But what you actually want when you're decompressing data, you actually want to be able to access it all at the same time. One big ass tar file, or bundling of data that is heavily compressed but also heavily accessible. So on this page, I'm talking about the hardware and the hardware side of things, how you could go about rapidly addressing information, and the software side, how you can go about rapidly addressing information. So the software side, like I was saying before, it's like a CAD file, Once whatever you've rendered, whatever object you've rendered, it could be, it could be this and this. I'm trying to grab stuff around me that's not going to invade my own privacy, or this. Let's say these three things are all being, a 3D rendering of these objects existing in space. Well, once I've made a complete scan of this, once it's been perfectly compressed, once we've overcome the linear limitation of both the human way of the way the people are taught to address their own data. It's not necessarily how I address my data, but the same with a computer. That boom, 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 one at a time way of accessing things. As soon as you go from linear to a CAD progression of your encoding, decoding, it becomes non-linear. It becomes so that you can access it. Zoom, rotate, pan, scan, time, space, forward, backward, left and right, all at the same time, both hardware and software. So I don't want to start reading my own stuff, so go ahead and read it yourself at your leisure. But that's essentially where I'm going with these ideas for Web 4.0 and 5.0 and beyond. Let's see. So I was thinking about, over here, the way data is compressed, or could be compressed, prior to assuming more understanding of the way it's actually compressed. And you take two images, and I tried to make these the same thing except for the smiley face and the frowny face. Essentially, if you've got in a given video, if you've got a scene, all you need to know, if you want to compress it linearly, that is, all you need to know is you take the highest resolution version of that scene, the one that has the most data, and then everything else in that scene, all the computer has to know is what's different about it to compress it, and everything else can be thrown out. So think about that. If you throw everything else out, then that's automatic compression, and then you go scene by scene. Each scene has that, but the scenes as they relate to one another can also be further refined. So that's sort of what I was thinking about at the time of rendering this myself. And you could see we eventually evolved to the what I call the prismatic computer. Okay, so this is this.
So Web 4.0 and beyond is going to be quite powerful. I earlier on showed you that the rotating or analog characters sort of looks like the Matrix, doesn't it? What we traditionally view as the digital interpretation of the Matrix. And so this is all available for free on our forums, zchg.org. I basically set everyone free if they want to be to utilize this Web 3.0 technology. That's what Web 4.0 is. It is the Web 3.0 released to everyone. So everyone has their own network, which we start applying the term network loosely. It's interoperable wrapping and mapping of all the assets, coalescing together to form one AI, peer-to-peer internet, peer-to-peer power, everything else tarball of information, data, power, everything else you could imagine, fully secure and privatized. It's a public-private hybrid thing. Before I forget, let's go over to the Proxmox post. Just going to type Proxmox into search. And essentially, what I was talking about before is a Kubernetes fabric of preferably AMD. It doesn't matter if it's AMD or NVIDIA, but AMD seems to be a little bit more open source. Fabric of resources so that people can have their own hybrid cloud locally. And so what it's going to come out that what they were doing with proof of work is just this. They were developing those large language models for the AI, and they were utilizing it to develop more and more powerful large language models and stable diffusion. And of course, what I've mentioned before is that Web 3.0, what we created in-house and was stolen from us by many, many large players, Web 3.0 is a mapping and wrapping of the various assets into one tarball or container or various containers which are mapped and wrapped to one another. And so it's cool that they did that, I guess. It's bad for the people, but what the people can sort of take that power back because of a simple principle of economy of scale. You know, for as much work or electricity as what they went into secretly developing these large language models using miners as the resources, which everybody thought they were doing nothing with their work. They were actually doing something, that was to develop these large language models. The economy of scale is such that they have diminishing returns. They have diminishing returns on their, that's the word I was trying to say actually before, diminishing returns on their result. And so if you take that into mind, you can actually develop your own AI locally, and you can increase the power of it by sharing your resources and having their resources of others, the resources of others shared back with you. So the secret of AI in the future is going to be, in addition to coming up with more and more efficient algorithms, which I go over with my primitives for Web 4.0, the secret is also going to be the sharing of those resources. And so it'll be the conglomerate, which I'll call the conglomerate, which is just everybody who is sharing their own resources only in-house with themselves or their conglomerate. And then it'll be everyone else who will work together to achieve essentially a C3.0 interspersal intermashing of the LLM and the stable diffusion mapped together and shared among, this is what I was looking for too. I'm going to talk briefly about that. Among each other, and so yeah, it is going to be quite interesting to see what everyone produces. But I was talking about economy of scale and diminishing returns. Well, guys, you actually don't, as it turns out, need a whole lot of computing power, and this might be one of the more powerful things I delve into with you. Go to this article. Here's the link. To read it yourself. If this ever has rendering issues, as you've seen, I have quite a bit of rendering issues once my productions hit YouTube. That's not my fault, that's YouTube. But you can see that you actually don't need a whole lot of processing powers to do this in any case. And what's really cool about it all is I think is the peer-to-peer internet and peer-to-peer power. And again, this is not new technology. This is old technology that's been under wraps for 100 years. Since Nikola Tesla, and all I'm doing is following in the footsteps of that giant and other giants like him as I develop this stuff. So, yep, go through all this stuff. We've envisioned, and it's come along actually pretty similar to how we envisioned Web 3.0, Web 4.0 to turn out. And so that's sort of the state of charge. This, if I could put it all in one picture, this is what it looks like. This is Web 4.0. You can see it's a digitized version of everything it captures, all the assets coming together vis-a-vis that Walmart effect to optimize the compression, maximize the encryption to make it secure and private, truly private, not pseudo-private, make it truly distributed, and make it so that it's it's the people's and not some powerful conglomerate who attempts to make it 1% more powerful than what we're going to achieve here. This is C3PO. Okay, this is the interoperation, the mapping and wrapping of the left brain and right brain hemispheres in the digital realm, and it's all available for free on our forum, so check that out. So monetarily, this has not been a great year for us. Research and development the last year It's just conceptually anyway, we've gone really far with it, and we can actually thank AI for contributing quite a bit to being able to put pen to paper a lot of these concepts, and working with AI to make AI more powerful, and to develop an AI, personal cloud AI for everyone. Everyone has their own AI, and also I might add file storage. So if you've got 1,700 or 2,000 movie titles in your collection, and you put all of that on your private cloud, well, that ties in too. So now this next generation of streaming of movies, music, any other assets you can think of, including but not limited to real estate, ties in. And so another side project that I worked on myself, peer-to-peer loans, all publicly accessible in the open source. Peer-to-peer loans allows for the wrapping and mapping of real-world contracts, real-world assets with digital contracts, digital assets. They become one, sort of like an NFT, a digital representation of that asset, but also with the lending and leasing, the ability to lend funds and receive funds, and of course, as with the keeping of our tradition, fully open source. So, and again, go to our GitHub to find out how powerful all the code is that we've been putting out is. It's not designed to be complete. It's designed to be open-ended. It's designed for you, the user. Yes, I said you, the user, to come in and fill in the blanks. That is the nature of Web 4.0. It is the at first weakness, and eventually it becomes the strength when you're competing against these conglomerates who are literally taking people like me and coming after us, my physical person. And so another project I've worked on this last year, and actually it's been a few years coming, is, and some of this I developed actually a couple years ago, is what happened to me, what happened to my family. These people do not play fair. And you can go to youtube.com/@Joseph-K, and my name is spelled with an F, you guys, not a PH, and find out some of the reason for the delay. In addition to the aforementioned Oleg sandbagging action which occurred, there was also the very much into play them coming after me and my family. And so I developed Joseph K Media as a spin-off of what happened there, and I developed Love Letter Media. You can access the official website there, facebook.com/Love Letter Media, to go into the nitty-gritty on that subject matter. So, without further ado, this is the end. I hope that you are satisfied as I am with the enormous amount of conceptual progress we've made. We had to take some detours in order for me to get this story out. I apologize, but it's sort of like the Matrix. It's not unlike the Matrix, where Agent Smith is Neo's worst enemy. He ends up being what helps set him free. He ends up being the reason in the later installments of the Matrix. He ends up being the reason he's able to grow. And so this spinoff that occurred several years ago now, it certainly was a setback at the time, but I think it made myself and the Charge project stronger. And this gentleman here, whether he decides to do the right thing or not is on him. And I think ultimately he makes our project stronger if he does the wrong thing. So that's sort of the nature of the universe, you guys, and God, if you believe in that sort of thing, which I personally think you should, sort of tying into that. So please do go to our website. There's a lot more as it relates. Some side projects I worked on before I close out. We've developed the last few years. We've regurgitated old laws on copyright, and we've noticed quite a bit of copyright infringement, and we've published that copyright infringement. The next step, sort of in waiting for the healthy judiciary to be restored, is invoking those old laws. The copyright laws and intellectual property laws were cemented in stone long since, but they've sort of been, due to corruption, they've sort of been put on the back burner. But we've dealt with numerous large entities outright stealing our work over the years, and we've dealt also with quite a bit of censorship. Oh, that's not it. That's an interesting article, but social media censorship around the same time period of Joseph K. Media, everything that happened with that, and Love Letter Media. They also shut down my Facebook account. Weakness becomes strength. This article is interesting, also talking about that. Where is it? Let me go. I think I might be faster just manually scrolling through. Bear with me here. Yes, to the manipulated coin. You can see that's one of our most hit websites because it's true. We have been hit with very strong censorship from very high places. That should tell you something. That should tell you that the mark is over the target. Are you paying attention, investors? We've been putting out a lot of output for very little income over the years. I've essentially been doing this for free, essentially from the start, more or less. And there are actually, this is a collection of articles that I put out as it relates. That's not the only one to this censorship, which had and has and will have occurred. That's this. We developed this. It's actually an old technology called the copyright that we're bringing back to the fore. There were some laws passed around the time I was in college that essentially reversed intellectual property. But of course, because of the nature of law, I'm not a lawyer, so don't take my word for it. Do your own research. But the nature of law, as I understand it, being the repugnancy is not allowed with respect to most laws, especially laws that pertain to your rights, which is what another avenue. There's a lot of avenues I've had to take, which I didn't think I would take. I really did try to keep it simple, stupid, with most of what I started, but it ended up being, that Agent Smith thing I talked about. It ended up being these bad things happening to us made us so much stronger. And I hope you can see we are building in strength. All praise and glory belongs to the Most High. We're sort of pivoting away from WeCharge and the electric vehicle charging thing in general. I should mention that. I still am very much a proponent. I'm very much into things like this RV solar project that I had worked on, but it's going to take a backseat to things like steam power and distributed power, which the secret to steam, if you didn't know, thanks to, I think it's called e-power, turned me on to this idea. The secret to steam is actually cold steam, not hot steam. So that'll come out more. I'm not the one doing that work. I'm just following it. Anyway, and yes, become your own power plant. Anyway, I'm Joseph with zchg.org signing off. Hope you enjoyed this presentation of State of Charg 2024. We'll see you next year for that presentation. Just to let you guys know, it will be a slow period. It is spring for me now here, and the weather was not great for many months. I'm taking advantage of that good weather by painting and doing spring cleaning, just as I hope you are, staying busy. And so a lot of that progress will be in here for that time. You'll have to be comfortable with that. Of course, if anybody wants to pay the man who's doing the work some actual monetary funds, be it gifting or purchasing of Charg, which always helps us out indirectly anyway, or anything. If you want to contribute intellectual property to us, or it is a forum and you are open to do that, or as long as you provide attribution, you can always take our work and use it for yourself. But if you don't provide attribution, you are in violation of copyright and intellectual property laws, as are applicable. So keep that in mind. That's why just do the right thing. Provide me with attribution. Come to me with whatever you have to bring in kind for the work I'm doing for you. It's the blight of man that we are not able to cooperate, but it's the gift given by God to man that we are able to cooperate. So let's work more on cooperation and less on the competition. Cooperation, as we've preached on high from long since. God bless. We'll see you next year for this presentation, but of course we'll see you soon for other presentations, assuming I get through this spring cleaning period quickly enough. We'll see you next time.